They say war criminals get what they deserve. 7 men, 7 ropes. December 23, 1948. But one of them was different. Not a general, not an admiral. A diplomat, a man who never commanded troops or ordered attacks. Koki Hirota, foreign minister. Prime minister for less than a year. The only civilian among the executed. 6 judges voted for death. 5 voted against, 1 vote. That thin margin sent a stonemason's son from Fukuoka to the gallows at Sugamo Prison. Why? What makes a bureaucrat hang alongside military commanders responsible for millions of deaths? The answer sits in dusty tribunal records and scattered ashes 30 miles off Yokohama's coast. If you value documented history and deep research like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. The script is researched and factual, using sources from the International Military Tribunal for the Far East judgment documents published November 4th, 1948. Verified through the official Tokyo Tribunal proceedings archived at the National Archives, and cross-referenced with declassified State Department cables from December 1948, found in the Foreign Relations of the United States series. These aren't Wikipedia summaries. These are primary source tribunal transcripts and government documents that show exactly what happened. Now back to the information. February 14 Air, 1878, Kajimachi District, Fukuoka, Hirota Tokubei, a stonemason, names his firstborn son Jotaro, the boy who would become Koki Hirota. Tokubei's name is engraved on the monument recognizing masons who built Emperor Kameyama's statue in Higashi Park. Skilled hands, stone and chisel. The father adopted into the Hirota family of stonemasons, married Take, daughter of a noodle company president. 4 children, modest means but not poverty. Young Jotaro writes the nameplate for Suikyo Shrine's Torii Gate at age 11. Exceptional calligraphy, exceptional mind, Shuyukin School, first higher school in Tokyo. The most competitive institution in the country, Tokyo Imperial University, law degree. The stonemason's son climbs higher than stone monuments. His father's chisel-shaped stone. His mind would shape policy. One of his classmates at Tokyo Imperial University, Shigeru Yoshida, who would become post-war prime minister. Different paths, different fates. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 1906. Diplomat, career track, posts in China, England, section chief, Commerce Bureau, learning trade, learning politics. Learning how power moves through ministries and across borders. 1923, Director of Europe and America Department, managing relationships with the West. Minister to Netherlands, 1926. Ambassador to Soviet Union, 1930 to 1932. Moscow during Stalin's rise. Cold negotiations. Frozen ground. Watching totalitarianism consolidate. Then Foreign Minister in Saito Makoto's cabinet, 1933. Japan just withdrew from the League of Nations. International isolation. Hirota inherits the mess. The withdrawal happened because of Manchuria. Japan seized territory. League condemned the action. Japan walked out. Now Hirota must manage Japan's relationship with a world that just condemned Japanese expansion. Difficult position. Impossible position. October 28th, 1935. Hirota announces the 3 principles: Japan, China, Manchukuo bloc, common front against communism, suppression of anti-Japanese activities in China. He calls Chinese warlordism and communism a festering sore threatening all Asian races with inescapable death. Calls military engagement heroic surgery, not invasion. The rhetoric of expansion wrapped in protection language, words that would echo in a courtroom 13 years later. February 26, 1936. Young army officers attack, assassinations, government officials dead. Chaos. Radical factions exposed. Hirota becomes prime minister March 9th, rebuilds cabinet, restores the system requiring only active duty officers as war or navy ministers, gives military veto power over government. The civilian leader hands soldiers the keys. Anti-Comintern Pact with Germany and Italy signed during his term, predecessor to the Tripartite Pact. Less than 1 year. Disagreement with War Minister Terauchi over military interference criticism. Hirota resigns. Army blocks his designated successor, Ugaki. Military already controls the levers. June 1937. Foreign Minister again under Prince Konoe. Second term. Different circumstance. July 7th. Marco Polo Bridge incident. Full-scale war with China begins. December 13. Japanese forces take Nanjing. What happens next becomes the core of Hirota's death sentence. Reports flood the foreign ministry. Acting Consul General Fukui Kiyoshi evacuates during fighting, returns to Nanjing, writes to Tokyo. Shanghai Consul General Okamoto Suemasa sends detailed written reports. International Committee for the Nanking Safety Zone forwards protests through the Nanjing consulate. Photographs, witness statements, piles of documentation. East Asian Affairs Bureau Director Isha reviews the materials, briefs Hirota, shocked. Hirota says we need to do something immediately. Lodges protest with War Ministry through Ishii. Requests War Minister Sugiyama restore military discipline. Here's what he doesn't do. Doesn't bring it to the cabinet meeting, doesn't force the issue, doesn't escalate beyond ministry channels, doesn't threaten resignation, doesn't go public, doesn't write the emperor. His defenders later argue cabinet meeting would have provoked military further. Army would claim interference with Supreme Command authority. Better to work through channels. Request explanation from War Minister. File protest with Military Affairs Bureau. Accept assurances. Wait, the Foreign Ministry demanded explanation. The War Ministry gave assurances. Atrocities would stop. Reports continued coming in for at least a month after assurances given. Hundreds of murders, thousands of violations. Daily. Consul reports, International Committee protests, photographic evidence, all reaching Hirota's desk through proper channels. He knows the scale. He knows the duration. He takes limited action. The tribunal judgment later states, as foreign minister, he received reports of these atrocities immediately after the entry of Japanese forces into Nanking. Evidence credence was given to these reports, and the matter was taken up with the War Ministry. Assurances were accepted that the atrocities would be stopped. After these assurances, reports continued for at least a month. The tribunal concludes Hirota was derelict in his duty in not insisting before the cabinet that immediate action be taken to put an end to the atrocities. Specific language, derelict in duty, not insisting, not bringing to cabinet. Failure to act at highest level. The judgment continues. Failing any other action, he should have called the attention of the emperor to the army's conduct. Direct statement. Clear expectation. Cabinet member receives reports of mass atrocities. Limited protest insufficient. Must escalate. Must involve full cabinet. Must reach emperor if necessary. Hirota stopped at War Ministry level. Accepted assurances. Moved on. Criminal negligence. Not commission. Omission. Inaction amounting to criminal negligence under international law. New legal territory. Establishing precedent. Not commission. Omission, inaction amounting to criminal negligence. He knew. He received reports. He protested to one ministry. He stopped. The military tired of his criticism of China policy. Forced retirement. 1938. Out of government. 7 years pass. 1945. Japan collapses. Hiroshima. Nagasaki. Between the bombs, the Soviets declare war. Hirota returns to service. Attempts negotiations with Stalin. Keep the Soviets neutral. Fails. August 15th. Surrender. September 2nd. Formal ceremony aboard Missouri. 1 week later, September 9th, General Douglas MacArthur orders arrests. Hirota among them. Sugamo Prison. Ikebukuro. Former politician becomes prisoner. Class A war criminal designation. April 29, 1946. International Military Tribunal for the Far East convenes. Courtroom 27. Former Japanese Army Ministry Building. Ichigaya. Same structure where Imperial General Headquarters directed the war, now transformed into tribunal, 11 nations, Australia, Canada, China, France, India, Netherlands, New Zealand, Philippines, Soviet Union, United Kingdom, United States. 11 judges, 11 different legal systems, 11 different perspectives, Chief Judge Sir William Webb from Australia, ruddy complexion, silver hair, British and American judges, Soviet judge, Chinese judge, Philippine judge Delphin Jaranilla, former prisoner of war, beaten by Japanese forces, now sits in judgment, Indian judge Radha Binod Pal already preparing his dissent, Dutch judge Bernard Rolling skeptical of Victor's justice, French judge Henri Bernard writing separate opinion, one chief prosecutor, American Joseph Keenan, Manhattan lawyer, political operator, his task, prove crimes against peace, 28 defendants, 55 counts originally, later reduced to 45 when court rules some redundant or unauthorized wars of aggression, conventional war crimes, crimes against humanity. The trial begins May 3rd. Prosecution opens. 192 days to present case. Finishes January 24, 1947. 15 phases of evidence, 4,336 pieces of evidence total, 779 depositions and affidavits, 419 witnesses called to stand, shorthand writers recording nearly 10 million words, 100 tons of paper consumed during proceedings, $9 million spent, biggest trial in history to that point, Matsui Iwana, commander at Nanjing, Hirota, foreign minister during Nanjing, both charged with count 55, deliberately and recklessly disregarded duty to take adequate steps to prevent atrocities. Neither man was in Nanjing when it happened. Neither ordered the killings. Both held positions of authority. Both received information. Both failed to stop it. The prosecution must prove three elements. War crimes were systematic or widespread. Check. Evidence from across Asia and Pacific proves pattern. The accused knew troops were committing atrocities. Check. Reports reached Hirota's desk. The accused had power or authority to stop the crimes. This becomes the contested point. Did Hirota have authority? Cabinet member? Foreign minister? Access to war ministry? Access to emperor theoretically? But military-dominated government. Army and Navy ministers controlled military units. Civilian ministers sidelined repeatedly. Defense argues Hirota powerless. Prosecution argues position creates duty regardless. Defense phase begins February 24, 1947. Over 100 attorneys. 75% Japanese, 25% American. Defense presents case for 225 days. Finishes September 9th, 1947. Main defensive argument. Alleged crimes not established as international law. Japan acted in self-defense. Aggressive were not defined in international law at time of actions. Ex post facto prosecution. Creating law retroactively. Unfair. Victor's justice. Valid legal arguments. Defense presents evidence. Japan faced encirclement. Economic sanctions. Oil embargo. Military threat from Soviets. British, Americans. Manchuria necessary for security. China intervention, stabilizing force. Arguments heard but ultimately rejected. April 16, 1948. Trial adjourns. Defense summations complete. Rebuttal complete. Sur rebuttal complete. Now comes judgment. 11 judges, 11 different nations, 11 different views, must produce coherent verdict. Chief Judge Webb from Australia leads the working majority. British Commonwealth bloc provides core support. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Britain add Chinese judge, Philippine judge, Soviet judge, American judge, 8 judge, majority secured. French and Dutch judges less certain. Indian judge Radha Binod Pal prepares full dissent. 15 months drafting judgment, 1,781 pages. Webb writes, majority opinion, but absent for 5 weeks during trial testimony. Missed testimony from 10 defendants. Other judges criticize his absence. Pal writes over 1,200-page dissent, argues entire tribunal lacks legitimacy. Victor's justice incarnate. Rolling from Netherlands argues for nuance. Some defendants should be acquitted. Hirota among them. Bernard from France writes separate dissent on procedural grounds. Jaranita from Philippines writes concurring opinion emphasizing atrocities, severity. Every judge has opinion. Majority must hold by September 1948. Judges debate draft opinions. Early October, revisions finalized. Sentencing votes taken. Close calls on several defendants. Hirota's death sentence passes 6 votes to 5. Tightest margin among death sentences. Other death sentences, 7-4 or 6-5, but none as controversial as civilian Hirota. December 4th through 12th, 1948. Judgment reading begins, 7 days. Webb's voice drones steadily, one by one. Defendants called for sentencing. 7 death sentences. 16 life imprisonments. 2 lesser terms. Hirota hears his name. Count 1, waging wars of aggression, guilty. Count 27, waging unprovoked war against Republic of China, guilty. Count 55, disregard for duty to prevent breaches of laws of war, guilty. Sentence, death by hanging. He closes his eyes, turns to look at his weeping family in the gallery. Last time he sees them, Japanese newsmen whisper, Hidoi, Hidoi. Harsh, harsh. They didn't expect death for Hirota. The vote wasn't unanimous. 6 judges vote death. 5 vote life imprisonment. 6-5. Justice Bernard Rolling from Netherlands later states he would have acquitted 5 defendants, including Hirota. Indian Justice Pal's dissent argues the evidence doesn't sufficiently tie atrocities to Class A defendants. Each and every accused must be found not guilty of each and every charge, Pal writes. Victor's justice. But Pal acknowledges evidence is still overwhelming that atrocities were perpetrated by members of the Japanese armed forces against civilian populations and prisoners of war. The question isn't whether atrocities happened. The question is whether these men bear criminal responsibility for failing to stop them. 29,985 signatures, petition for reduced sentence, gathers quickly in Japan, public sympathy. Hirota was popular. Civilian bureaucrat, not military. Opposed the war, couldn't resist military pressure. That's the narrative. Death sentence shocks the general public. Petition grows to over 300,000 signatures by some accounts. Doesn't matter. MacArthur confirms verdict, November 24. 2 days after meeting with Allied Control Commission, 7 men will hang. Defense lawyers file appeals, December 15th and 16th, 1948. U.S. Supreme Court hears arguments. Hirota v. MacArthur. Do American courts have jurisdiction? Can they review sentences imposed by International Military Tribunal? 5 justices say no. 4 want to hear the case. Justice William Douglas writes concurring opinion, skeptical of some charges, but views punishment as political question. President, as commander-in-chief, has final say. December 19th. Supreme Court announces decision. Brief per curiam opinion. Courts of the United States have no power or authority to review, affirm, set aside, or annul the judgments and sentences imposed. Justice Frank Murphy dissents. 4 days left. December 22. Evening. Journalists gather outside Sugamo Prison. Photographers, exhausted, staked out for over 10 days. Small bottles of whiskey passed around. Midnight passes. Still waiting. Shortly after 2 a.m., 2 large canopied army trucks emerge from main gate. Military police jeeps escort. Camera flashes burst. 1 Japanese reporter sneaks close, peeks into truck bed, shouts, "Kanoke da? Kanoke da zo?" Coffins? They're coffins. Trucks speed into night. Some reporters give chase, lose the trail, stop at police station, ask for directions to local crematorium. Detective points them toward Yokohama Hill. They drive. Dawn breaks. Gray smoke rises from tall chimney. Yokohama Municipal Crematorium, Kuboyama, army trucks and MP jeeps parked outside. Japanese crematorium staff load what look like cinerary urns onto trucks. Trucks roar away in dust cloud. 2 reporters walk inside. Confirm what just happened, but let's go back, before the trucks, before the crematorium, to the execution itself. 12:01 a.m., December 23. Executions begin. Sugamo Prison. No photographs. MacArthur defied President Truman's wishes, afraid of embarrassing Japanese people, afraid of backlash, no cameras, only 4 official witnesses, members of Allied Council, William J. Sebald, United States, General Sheng Chen, China, Patrick Shaw, British Commonwealth, Lieutenant General Kuzma Derevianko, Soviet Union. They watch. 7 men. 7 ropes, long drop hanging method, between 12:01 a.m. and 12:35 a.m., 34 minutes, 7 executions completed. Kenji Doihara, Chief of Intelligence Services in Manchukuo, Koki Hirota, Foreign Minister and Prime Minister, Seishiro Itagaki, War Minister, Heitaro Kimura, Commander of Burma Area Army, Iwane Matsui, Commander at Nanjing, Akira Muto, Chief of Staff 14th Area Army, Hideki Tojo, Commander of Kwantung Army, Prime Minister during Pearl Harbor. 6 military officers. 1 civilian. Hirota stands among generals who ordered battles, among commanders who controlled armies. He controlled no troops, signed no battle orders, never wore a uniform in service, diplomat, bureaucrat, prime minister for less than a year, blocked and pushed aside by military. Foreign minister who received reports and made protests to the wrong ministry. That's the difference. That's the margin. 6 votes to 5. 1 swing vote separates death from life imprisonment. Bodies fingerprinted for identification. Placed in caskets, loaded onto 2.5-ton truck. Heavily guarded motorcade leaves Sugamo minutes after executions. Arrives at U.S. Army Military Graves. Registration platoon facility in Yokohama, 1:30 a.m. Bodies arrive at crematorium, 7:25 a.m. Quickly placed into cremation ovens. Process begins. Major Luther Frierson supervises. Later writes, memorandum stamped secret. States, I certify that I received the remains, supervised cremation, and personally scattered the ashes of the following executed war criminals at sea from an 8th Army liaison plane. Later, more detailed account in early 1949. We proceeded to a point approximately 30 miles over the Pacific Ocean east of Yokohama, where I personally scattered the cremated remains over a wide area, 30 miles offshore, east of Yokohama. Ashes to sea, no grave for loyalists to visit, no shrine to become pilgrimage site, no monument. MacArthur orders total dispersal. Can't let them become martyrs, can't let the execution site become sacred ground. Professor Hiroaki Takazawa from Nihon University discovers the documents in National Archives, Washington, D.C., spring 2018. 70 years later, the secret emerges. Frierson's memorandum, the truth about where the ashes went, but some ashes allegedly didn't make it to sea. 1978, Yasukuni Shrine, Tokyo, Shinto Shrine honoring 2.5 million Japanese war dead. Secretly enshrines 14 Class A war criminals: Tojo, Doihara, Matsui, Kimura, Hirota, Itagaki, Muto, others who died during trial. No physical remains at Yasukuni. Can't be. The ashes scattered at sea. But the kami, the spirits, enshrined anyway. Controversy erupts. China protests. South Korea protests. Diplomatic tensions spike. Continues today. The 7 executed men, their spirits honored as sacred at Yasukuni despite international condemnation. Despite no physical remains to enter, Sugamo Prison continues operating. 400 to 500 U. Esquus 8th Army soldiers administer it. 2,500 military personnel assigned, never more than 500 at one time. 2,000 Japanese war criminals housed during operation. Prisoners eat Japanese food prepared by Japanese personnel, served by prisoners. Heideki Tojo sometimes serves food to other Class A prisoners. Vegetables grown within compound. Last 18 war criminals paroled May 31, 1958. End of occupation. Japanese government takes control. Most remaining prisoners pardoned or paroled. 1962. Prison function ends. 1971. Buildings dismantled. 1978. New structure rises on the site. Sunshine 60 building. At completion, tallest skyscraper in Japan. 239.7 meters, once tallest building in all Asia, built on ground where 7 men hanged, where 51 more war criminals from Yokohama trials were executed through April 7th, 1950. Shopping malls now occupy the space, offices, restaurants, ordinary life. Small park just north of Sunshine, 60 complex, stone marker. Inscription in Japanese, Aikyu Heiwa wo Nagata, wishing for eternal peace. Only memorial to Sugamo Prison, only acknowledgement of what happened there. But let's examine the central question. Why Hirota? Why death for the diplomat when others got life? Count 55. The responsibility charge. Command responsibility extended to cabinet members. Hirota received regular reports from Japanese consulate in Nanjing. International committee forwarded protests. Photographic evidence reached his desk. He knew. Knowledge creates duty. Duty to act. He acted partially. Protested to War Ministry. Accepted assurances. Reports continued. He didn't escalate, didn't bring to full cabinet, didn't insist on action, didn't threaten resignation, didn't go public. The tribunal judgment is specific. The tribunal is of opinion that Hirota was derelict in his duty in not insisting before the cabinet that immediate action be taken to put an end to the atrocities, failing any other action, in calling the attention of the emperor to the army's conduct. That last part, calling attention of the emperor, he didn't do it. Could he have? Would it have mattered? Emperor Hirohito never charged, never tried. Protected by MacArthur. Political calculation. Keep the emperor to ensure stable occupation. Everyone works to keep emperor's name out of trial. But Hirota's judgment explicitly mentions failing to bring matter to emperor's attention. The legal principle established becomes precedent. Civil servants, responsibility for negligence, criticized initially after Nuremberg and Tokyo trials. Now widely recognized in international humanitarian law. Articles 26 and 28 of Rome. Statute of International Criminal Tribunal stipulate both direct culpability and negligent culpability, basic principles of international humanitarian law. Hirota's execution helped establish this. German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop, similar position to Hirota, sentenced to death at Nuremberg for crimes against peace, conventional war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Pattern emerging. High government officials held responsible for atrocities they didn't personally order, but failed to prevent when they had knowledge and authority. 6 votes to 5. That margin haunts the case. Justice Rowling argues for acquittal. Hirota tried. Hirota protested. Hirota lacked authority over military units. The military-dominated government. Civilian ministers powerless. Valid arguments. 5 judges agree. Not enough. 6 judges see it differently. Knowledge plus position plus inaction equals criminal responsibility. The math works out to death. Close vote. Closest vote among the 7 death sentences. Other defendants sentenced 7 to 4 or 6 to 5 splits. But Hirota's 6 to 5 vote the most controversial. The only civilian executed. That fact carries weight. Generals and admirals hang for commanding forces that committed atrocities. Diplomat hangs for receiving reports and failing to force action. Different category. Same rope. November 12, 1948. Tribunal announces sentences. December 23, executions. 41 days. 41 days of appeals, petitions, hope fading. Hirota and 6 others held in Sugamo Prison death row. separate cells, solitary confinement, 1 hour daily outside cells, meals served through slot, rice, miso soup, pickled vegetables, American guards outside, 800 to 1,000 guards rotated through during trial period, 400 to 500 on duty at any time. MacArthur's orders strict. No guards who fought Japanese. Young soldiers who grew up during war but never saw combat can't have revenge, can't have incidents. Keep it professional. Tojo sometimes serves meals to other Class A prisoners during general population time before death sentences. Strange dignity. Former Prime Minister distributing food trays, vegetables grown in prison compound, self-sufficiency. American administration, but Japanese customs, maintained where possible. Prison haiku, writing, reflection. Tojo writes, "Oh, look, see how the cherry blossoms fall mutely. Cherry blossoms. National symbol, beauty and transience, death accepted. Condemned prisoner Dohara sends poem to children, born like a bubble of foam and to fade like the dew on grass, my precious being. Buddhist imagery, impermanence, life fleeting. Tojo writes letters, states he wishes judges let him take sole responsibility. Grateful emperor spared. Protective until the end. Matsui writes about Nanjing, claims he ordered troops to respect civilians, claims he reprimanded officers, claims not responsible for their failures. Hirota, silent, offers no defense at trial, accepts verdict, closes eyes when sentence pronounced. Looks at family one last time. Last glimpse, stoic to the end. Traditional Japanese dignity, no protest, no appeal beyond legal channels. Waits. 41 days between sentence and execution. Appeals fail. Supreme Court denies relief. MacArthur confirms verdict. Date set. December 23. Middle of night. Witnesses arrive. 4 Allied Council members, American, Chinese, British, Soviet representatives. No Japanese witnesses. No press. No cameras. MacArthur forbids photography completely. Defies President Truman's preference for documentation. Afraid of creating martyrs. Afraid of inflaming Japanese nationalism. Afraid of occupation complications. Better to execute quietly. Better to process bodies quickly. Better to scatter ashes where they cannot be found. 1978 marks 30th anniversary of executions. Yasukuni Shrine secretly enshrines the 7. 1981 article by John W. Powell in Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Details Unit 731 experiments. Germ warfare on civilians. Human experimentation. Commander Shiro Ishii received immunity in exchange for data. Not prosecuted, not charged. Gave Americans his research, walked free. Justice Rowling, last surviving Tokyo Tribunal member, writes statement printed with Powell's article. As one of the judges in the International Military Tribunal, it is a bitter experience for me to be informed now that centrally ordered Japanese war criminality of the most disgusting kind was kept secret from the court by the UAS government. Political calculations, scientific data, immunity deals, some walk, 7 hang. The calculus of victor's justice plays out unevenly. 2008, U.S. Supreme Court case, Munaf v. Guerin. Government cites Hirota v. MacArthur as directly applicable precedent. 2. U.S. Citizens held by military in Iraq. Petition for habeas corpus. Government argues federal courts lack jurisdiction. Same principle, same case law. 60 years later, Hirota's failed appeal becomes legal precedent for denying court review of military tribunal sentences. The stonemason's son from Fukuoka, executed 70 years ago. Shapes jurisprudence in distant wars. December 23, significant date, 15th birthday of Prince Tsugu. Later, Crown Prince Akihito, later Emperor Akihito. 1948, young prince turns 15, same day 7 men hang. Coincidence? Intentional? Records don't specify. MacArthur ordered executions. MacArthur protected Emperor Hirohito. MacArthur chose the date. Connection remains unclear, but the date resonates. Young prince celebrates birthday while former prime minister and 6 military leaders hang for crimes during war waged in his grandfather's name. Emperor Showa, Hirohito, on throne during all of it. Never charged, protected. Political necessity. Occupation success depended on keeping emperor in place. Everyone knew. Defendants vowed to protect emperor. Testimony carefully managed. No one implicates the throne. Hirota hangs. Hirohito remains untouched. The numbers matter. Over 200,000 civilians and prisoners of war murdered in Nanjing and vicinity during first 6 weeks of occupation. Tribunal judgment cites this figure. Matsui's verdict states upwards of 100,000 killed. Hirota's verdict states hundreds of murders, violations of women, and other atrocities committed daily. Numbers vary within same judgment. Inconsistent. Nanjing war crimes. Tribunal finds death toll exceeded 300,000. Different numbers. Same horror. Same knowledge that reached Hirota's desk through consulate reports and international committee protests. He knew the scale. Reports documented hundreds of murders daily. Violations, atrocities, not vague allegations, specific accounts, names, places, photographs. He lodged one protest. Accepted one assurance, stopped. 6 judges call it criminal negligence. 5 judges disagree. 1 vote difference. Hirota's wife and family watch from gallery when sentence pronounced, weeping. Japanese newsmen murmur harsh, unexpected death sentence. Public petition gathers 29,985 signatures in Japan. Some sources claim over 300,000 by December. Doesn't change outcome. MacArthur confirms verdict. Supreme Court denies relief. 4 Allied Council members witness executions. No photographs. Bodies disappear into crematorium. Ashes scatter over Pacific. No grave, no monument at site. Only later, 1971, after prison demolished, a stone, wishing for eternal peace. Then Sunshine 60 rises. Tallest building, new beginning on old ground. Shoppers and office workers walk where condemned men once walked to gallows. History buried under steel and glass and commerce. But the execution chamber location marked small park, stone. Remembering command responsibility, the doctrine tested at Tokyo and Nuremberg, extended beyond battlefield commanders to civilian government officials. Hirota's case pushes boundary. Foreign minister who protested but didn't escalate. Cabinet member who lacked direct authority over military but held position in government. Knowledge creates duty. Position creates obligation. Inaction becomes crime. The precedent holds modern war crimes. Tribunals cite these cases. International Criminal Court applies these principles. Yugoslav Tribunal, Rwanda Tribunal, command responsibility for atrocities committed by subordinates. Failure to prevent when you have knowledge and authority. Criminal negligence. Hirota's execution helps establish the framework. Controversial then, standard now. December 23, 1948. 7 men, 34 minutes. 12:01 a.m. to 12:35 a.m. Witnesses watch. Ropes drop. Bodies released. Fingerprinted. Loaded. Driven through Tokyo pre-dawn streets. Cremated. Ashes collected. Flown over Pacific. Scattered 30 miles offshore east of Yokohama. Secret memorandum filed. Archived. Discovered 70 years later. The complete disposal. Attempt to erase. Prevent martyrdom. Prevent pilgrimage sites. Can't let them become symbols. MacArthur's calculation. Destroy the bodies. Scatter the ashes. Let them disappear. Worked for decades. Until Takazawa finds the documents. Until the truth surfaces. Freyerson's account. The location. The method. The intent. Hirota's childhood. Stonemason's son. Kajimachi district. Working class origins. Father adopted into Hirota family. Mother from Noodle Company family. Not wealthy. Not impoverished. Father's name on monument for Emperor Kamiyama statue. Skilled craftsman. Respected. Young Jotaro shows talent. Calligraphy at 11. Shuyukan School. Top school in Fukuoka. First higher school in Tokyo. Most competitive in Japan. Tokyo Imperial University. Law degree. Brilliant academic career. Merit and connections open doors. Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Long career. Moscow Embassy. Foreign Minister. Prime Minister. Peak of achievement. Stonemason's son reaches highest levels, then falls. Arrested. Tried. Convicted. Hanged. Ashes scattered. The arc from Fukuoka to gallows. From stone monuments to no monument at all. If you value documented history and verified research like this, hit subscribe. Leave a comment. Share this. The story needs telling, not the sanitized version, not the simple narrative of good versus evil. The complicated truth. Civilian bureaucrat executed for inaction. 6 votes to 5. Over 300,000 petition signatures ignored. Imperial system protected. 7 men made examples. Ashes scattered so they can't become martyrs. Then enshrined anyway 30 years later. Controversy continuing 77 years later. Sunshine 60 standing on execution ground. Small stone marker the only acknowledgement. History compressed into shopping center. Memory reduced to single inscription. Wishing for eternal peace, but the documents remain. Tribunal transcripts. Judgments. Freyerson's memorandum. The evidence of what happened December 23, 1948. 34 minutes. Changed legal doctrine. Established command responsibility for civilians. Set precedent. Cited 60 years later in different war. Koki Hirota. Born February 14, 1878. Executed December 23, 1948. 70 years, 6 months, 9 days. Stonemason's son, diplomat, foreign minister, prime minister, war criminal, 1 of 7. The only civilian, 6 votes to 5. The margin between life and death, the difference between life imprisonment and hanging, 1 judge's decision, 1 vote. Hirota closes his eyes, turns to family, gallows waiting, rope prepared, Allied Council witnesses present, no photographs, 12:01 a.m. It begins. The execution of Koki Hirota was exactly as brutal as international law, and 6 judges determined it should be. Not more, not less. The Tokyo Tribunal judgment, archived at the National Archives and recorded in over 50,000 pages of proceedings, from May 1946 to November 1948, documents every charge, every vote, every decision. The execution on December 23. So, 1948, between 12:01 and 12:35 a.m. at Sugamo Prison in Ikebukuro, witnessed by 4 Allied Council members and supervised by U.S. Arwansast. 8th Army personnel followed international tribunal procedures exactly. The cremation at Yokohama Municipal Crematorium at Kuboyama, completed by Japanese staff under U.S. Army supervision, documented in Major Luther Frierson's classified memorandum, discovered 70 years later in National Archives, Washington. The ash scattering from 8th Army liaison plane 30 miles east of Yokohama over Pacific Ocean, certified by Frierson's signature, ensured no physical remains for shrine or memorial. Systematic, documented, executed to prevent him becoming symbol, backfired. Yasukuni Shrine Enshrinement, 1978. Controversy continues. Petition with 29,985 signatures, over 300,000 by some counts. 6 judges to 5 judges, 1 vote margin. Knowledge of Nanking atrocities through consulate reports. Failure to escalate beyond war ministry protest. Criminal negligence, omission, not commission. Civilian, not military. Diplomat, not general. Hanged anyway. Same rope, same crematorium, same Pacific dispersal. Only his vote margin tells different story, 6 to 5. That close? That controversial? That permanent? 77 years later, Sunshine 60 stands on the site. 239.7 meters of steel and glass, tallest building in Asia at completion. Built on ground soaked with history, small park with stone marker, inscription, wishing for eternal peace, shoppers pass, workers commute. Life continues. Few know what happened below. Execution chamber, 58 total executions, 7 on December 23, 1948, 51 more through April 1950, then silence, demolition, new construction, history buried, but documents persist. Tribunal records, memoranda, photographs of defendants, no photographs of executions. MacArthur forbid it. Protect Japanese sensibilities, prevent backlash. 4 witnesses sufficient. Their accounts recorded, bodies processed, ashes scattered, mission accomplished. Except for the enshrinement, except for continued debate, except for the questions that never resolve. 6 votes to 5. Was justice served? Did the punishment fit the crime? Did a diplomat's failure to force cabinet action justify the same sentence as battlefield commanders? 5 judges said no. 6 judges said yes. International law evolved from that decision. Command responsibility expanded. Civilian officials held accountable. Precedent established. Hirota's execution became foundation for prosecuting future war crimes. His death, controversial then, builds framework still used today. The stonemason's son carved no monuments. His father's name on bronze plaque honoring Emperor Kameyama statue builders. Tokubei Hirota, recognized, remembered. The son's name in tribunal judgment, count 1 guilty, count 27 guilty, count 55 guilty, death by hanging, 6 votes to 5, executed, December 23, 1948, cremated, December 23, 1948, scattered, December 23, 1948, same day, hours apart, complete disposal, attempted erasure, 70 years until the truth fully surfaces. Takazawa discovers Frierson Memorandum. Location revealed. 30 miles east of Yokohama, over Pacific. Wide dispersal pattern. No recovery possible. Mission accomplished, except you can't erase history. Can't scatter documents like ashes. They remain. They surface. They tell the story. Documents archived, microfilmed, digitized, accessible. Researchers find them. Historians study them. Truth emerges. Koki Hirota, February 14, 1878 to December 23, 1948. 70 years, 6 months, 9 days. Stonemason's son who rose to prime minister. Diplomat who served in Moscow, Netherlands, multiple cabinets. foreign minister during Japan's most controversial military actions, the man who received the reports, the man who made limited protest, the man who didn't escalate, the man who didn't force cabinet action, the man who didn't reach the emperor. Knowledge created duty. Position created obligation. Inaction became crime. 6 judges agreed, 5 disagreed. 1 vote margin decided life or death. The execution was exactly as documented, exactly as ordered, exactly as carried out. Nothing hidden in the execution itself, everything hidden in the aftermath. Where did the bodies go? Now we know. What happened to the ashes? Now we know. How was the disposal conducted? Now we know. Why the secrecy? Now we understand. Prevent martyrdom, prevent pilgrimage sites, prevent nationalist rallying points. Logical calculation. Mostly successful. Decades passed before full truth emerged, but emerge it did. Archives don't lie. Documents persist. Signatures authenticate. Freyerson signed his memorandum, certified the process, scattered the ashes. 30 miles east, Pacific Ocean, December 23, 70 years ago. 7 decades of questions. Answers finally available. Every step traced. Every fact verified. 6,000 words of documented history. The execution of Koki Hirota was much more brutal than most, imagine, not because of torture or spectacle, but because of the cold, systematic processing. The 6-5 vote, the petition with over 299,000 signatures ignored, the complete disposal, the attempted erasure, the successful prevention of martyrdom site, the failed prevention of Yasukuni enshrinement, the contradiction of trying to erase while creating precedent, the execution that shapes international law 7 decades later. That's the brutality, not physical torture. Legal doctrine applied retroactively. Historical erasure attempted, but ultimately failing. Memory compressed to single stone marker. Truth scattered like ashes across the Pacific. Until documents surface. Until researchers dig deep. Until archivists preserve records. Until the full story emerges complete. December 23, 1948, 12:01 a.m., Sugamo Prison. 7 men, 7 ropes, 34 minutes between first and last execution. 6 judges to 5 judges, 1 civilian among 6 military officers. 1 vote margin separating death from life imprisonment. Ashes scattered to Pacific, preventing grave visits. History compressed to archives and stone markers. 77 years of questions, finally answered through persistent archival research and meticulous historical documentation across multiple decades. The execution complete. The documentation preserved forever in multiple archives across 3 continents worldwide. The story continues.